I don't want to say it in Hungarian. They usually say Balazs.
Balazs.
It should be Balazs.
Balazs.
Like all Hungarian words, the accent is on the first syllable. like right? Balazs. Bartók.
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 Right, right.
Kodály. Okay, so we settled that.
I mean, you came to the States what year?
December 1939. So I just made it then. I could barely speak English. That was very new and very spoiled as a violin artist. I was, giving violin concerts. I was a violinist. Well, I like to say still am, but I have to start with book one right at the moment. Well, the war broke out and I just made it out from over there. It's a long story. I needed a lot of political help to be able to, because the frontiers were closed. The Nazis were next door and right inside Hungary. The person who really helped me was Ernst von Dochnányi. Dochnányi! Who was not only the great musician that he was, president of everything, but he was awarded the official title of His Excellency. So he had to do some political twisting around it, so I would officially be let out of the country.
Really?
So here I was in New York City on the subway, and somebody was reading the newspaper. It says, Hungary declares war at the United States. I almost started laughing. They maybe had, who knows, 9 airplanes and whatever. Then I started to be thinking, because I was an enemy alien then officially. So to make the short story a little longer, I decided to enlist. I had an agent in New York for my violin performances.
Right.
And through him, I was, just out of the army and new and all that. The New York Philharmonic had summer concerts at Tucson Stadium, and I was a guest conductor there. And I wrote this music called An American Symphony after Walt Whitman. Each movement had a slogan taken out from a Walt Whitman patriotic poetry. And anyway, that was scheduled, and I remember, let's see, we started with the Beethoven Egmont Overture. We had Bartók, Béla Bartók's Dance Suite, which is a hairy piece. We did that. And Mendelssohn, the Midsummer Night Dream movements, and my symphony. I even forgot that I wrote that I started to get these invoices from somewhere, BMI or something, for royalty, royalty checks.
As a composer.
Composers, yeah. $3.87. The paper was as big as my desk and full of gibberish that I didn't understand. But I understood one thing, that somewhere in Osaka, Japan, and in Venezuela, they played an American symphony. Well, actually, originally it was a string quartet that I wrote, and I remember I was in the army. That makes a good story, just remembering. I was getting my basic training in Mississippi, Grenada, Mississippi. It's about 300 some miles from New Orleans, and I was put on KP, kitchen police. I had to get up 4 o'clock in the morning, in some ungodly town like that, and go in the kitchen and open it up and make the fires and clean things up. And, well, but the Budapest String Quartet selected it on their own. I'd never met them before, to be a part of the what's called the International Contemporary Music Festival, and they were in New Orleans. So I requested them to go down there. Oh, they were laughing me out of the place. They said, well, there's a war going on. So anyway, somehow I got a furlough, and it was a long bus ride, standing up like sardines, all 300 and some miles. Finally, I got somebody getting off it, got a seat, but only to give it up to a lady. Anyway, this bus came in just about time to make this in the big auditorium down in New Orleans, to make it for the program. And this bus driver made it. Did me a favor by asking him to let me out so I could run to the auditorium, which it was close, instead of taking me way over there. But I asked for the wrong place to let me off. I ran like Nurmi, you know, the Olympic champion, and just in time that they closed the doors, and the ushers wouldn't hear of letting me in there. So he couldn't hear the performance. I was putting my ear to the door, but he wouldn't let me in. So I just waited for the whole concert, of course, and sheepishly went down to the artist room, where the people lining up to talk with them, and Sasha this and Sasha that. And so I was in my army uniform, a buck private, you know. So I'm in the corner waiting for people to go away. So people started to dwindle away, and I thought, well, you know, forgot it, Schneider, Alexander Schneider was the second violinist, who was later, after Casals died, Pablo Casals, he was in charge of the Casals Festival. You know, very famous people, every one of them. So I just went over shyly and shaking his hand, and said, well, you know, my name is Frederic Balazs. And, maybe I've said Balazs, I don't know. I was too young in this country. And I tried to tell him how much I appreciated the concert. So they started to all go down with the violins and the cello. And Schneider looked back, "Did you say Balazs?" And so he was waving all the other guys back and meeting me. And the San Francisco, in the San Francisco performance, I don't know what the review is. Frankenstein was the name of the critic. Frankenstein, a famous critic at the time. He said the best received in the international festival was my Divertimento for string quartet. Okay. Yeah, I was maybe 22, 20 years old. So I made myself squeezed like sardines for my 300 and some miles back to the army camp. I was late, so I was put on KP, my kitchen police, for a whole week as a punishment. And I never heard my composition yet played by the string quartet. So I decided to make that an American symphony.
You expanded.
And added a last
Mm-hmm.
movement, which is a very stirring march. It's sort of really a rising thing. It starts from very, 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 very softly. Then it keeps on repeating and repeating like a Ravel bolero.
Mm-hmm.
I stole his idea. It ends very, very full, blessed, all that.
What's the
Stride
connection to?
Stride on democracy, strike with vengeful strokes, as Walt Whitman. Anyway.
What's the connection to Walt Whitman? Is there any text performed, or are the movements just inspired by
I
some of
wrote
the
the music
patriotic?
first, and I found the poetry.
Okay, to go.
That was fitting, yeah.
Does anybody speak the poetry in the performance, or is it?
Oh, it was written up, but
Is it in the score?
All in Downs was the New York Times
Mm-hmm.
critic, and he wrote a kind of a sarcastic review that, oh, what a nice thing it is that I'm this young musician back from the army and Hungarian and all that he was conducting and wrote the symphony, and he didn't. I didn't make a splash. I didn't make a big hit with him. Tucson Symphony. I was here in Tucson for 16 years, 1952 through 1967, and I came here from Texas, where I had the symphony in Wichita Falls 4 years before. That's where I got married. So it's a funny thing how I got this position. It was, well, there was a well-known person in the musical field called David Lawrence. He was conductor of the very good Phoenix Symphony, and he was commuting to New York City he was a host for the Metropolitan Opera concerts on Sunday afternoons. And he was a very well-liked person. And then the opening came here to the Tucson Symphony, here where they used to change conductors 2 or 3 in a season. There were some ladies of the orchestra, they were running the conductor. They didn't like him or whatever. And I didn't have any idea what hornet's nest I'm going to come into. Well, David Lawrence was pushed very hard by the board people over here to share Phoenix and Tucson together. And then the other candidate was a very fine musician who was conductor of the Arizona University Symphony, Henry.
Okay.
Was a very dear person and very qualified, but sort of colorless. David Lawrence had this thing. Well, if they would get Henry as a conductor, they would lose a large following who were for Mr. Lawrence, who was more of the social work to do. So they found me. I was didn't know. I thought that I won't make it through the first season because everybody wanted to run things. And well, I read a lot about Abraham Lincoln. Okay? I used to smoke the corncob pipe. It was only 25 cents, so if it got too stinky, I didn't have to go cleaning it, just throw it away, get another one. Because somebody once told me, hey, Fred, you know, you look real nice with a pipe. I never inhaled it. Me and like Bill Clinton, I never inhaled it. I wished I could, but I envied people who came out of the noses and smoked.
No, I know.
But
so you got the job in Tucson.
Thinking back in Hungary, in the villages, out in front of the thatched roof houses, all the people, they have this long pipe, just smoking. They look so wise when they lie. Anyway, I always did what was best. The orchestra was terrible, and I did not want to have auditions because many of those people were patriotically with it for a long time. I just raised the standard, so I knew that people will, on their own, will come across and leave. It's exactly what happened. I was able to talk them into inviting musicians that I knew in Los Angeles and San Francisco, and real professional, wonderful musicians. And next to that professional was one of those people who cannot barely play themselves out of a paper bag. And
you put it together, yeah.
We were professional caliber. I'm not exaggerating.
Well, I think when my family came here in '68, it was considered a decent orchestra. So you left it in better condition than you found it.
Oh my goodness, we had Marian Anderson 2 times. We had Benny Goodman here for a whole week. We had Claudio Arau. We had Sigeti, we had Leonard Rose, cello. We had Jan Pierce, the tenor, dear friends, and we had Jose Iturbi. We had Stokowski's guest conductor. And that was my most difficult concert because we got him for he was the conductor of the Houston Symphony. And I knew his manager in New York.
Iturbi?
Pardon me?
You're talking about Iturbi?
Stokowski. And I was in New York and went visiting. I had lunch in his apartment. I forgot his name now. And Andrew Schulhoff, no, it wasn't Schulhoff. Anyway, this person somehow liked me, and he arranged that Stokowski would come guest conductor to Tucson Symphony, which was not that so-called major orchestra, of course. And Tchaikovsky was famous just at that time that he was invited to guest conduct the Cleveland Orchestra. And after the first rehearsal, he said, I can't conduct them. They're not good enough for him. So they had a special board meeting. Fred, you don't want to embarrass us. We only paid him $1,000. At the time, it was a little more money, of course. But never mind that. Here he came. He came by train. He never liked flying. And the first thing he did, he arrived, remember we were sitting having breakfast and the telephone rang. My wife took the call. She swallowed a big one and handed me the telephone. This is Maestro Balazs, she said. This is Leopold Stokowski. He wanted to see me right away down at the Pioneer Hotel, and he wanted to come up to the house to see we had kids, and she was pregnant, and all that stuff. No, he wanted to be with the family, so that's what he did. We took him out, and he was on his fours. Two little kids were riding on his back. And he became the monster. He was going around, the kids were running around the kitchen, back to the living room around, and he was like that. And Marian Anderson had my chicken paprika too. Pardon me?
You made the chicken paprika for Marian?
Sure.
Oh, wow.
World famous, Uncle Fred's world famous chicken paprika. Every time I went to this New York City, I used to visit always the ACA friends over there at the offices, and I went to the library. Always, on every concert, we had a new composition. And I took out Ulysses Case. His composition was for the orchestra called Of New Horizons, and I wanted to play it. Well, now, this is not these days much easier to talk about than those days, perhaps. I did not know that he was quote-unquote black. Okay? And I felt obliged. I asked him always, this Ulysses K. I never met him before, just went by the score, by the music score. Asked him to guest conduct his work. So I was obliged to ask my board to tell them, because I didn't want any sensitive thing or anything to happen. So they got mad at me, but not because he was black, but because I would think that it would make to them any difference, which was very nice. So Yuli came, and we made good friends, and he was very, very well received. The leader of the second violins his name was Freddie Armstrong. He owned this big lumber.
I don't know if you should mention the name.
He owned this big lumber company. He called me on the phone, very dear friends, with a southern accent. Freddy, he couldn't bring himself to play it. That he said, can he just thank out from this concert? He couldn't just imagine himself to play under the direction of Julie Kay because of the racial connection. Mm-hmm. I said, Fred, you play. And, so he did. You know, he and Julie Kay became best, closest friends.
Oh my gosh.
So we made time again. We got a big time article on it. The headline was The Return of Ulysses. And his Julie Kay's father was a barber here in Tucson.
Right.
On the other side of the railroad track.
He was born here.
He was born here.
He was born in Tucson. That's right.
So anyway,
I forgot
that was about Julie Kay, and I miss him. We always saw each other every trip we could manage to be together. from Tucson, I went to Cincinnati first.
Oh, that's right.
I lasted 4 years there, and then I became a gypsy. So,
Mm-hmm.
and guest conducted and found my way around, and
Did you still perform on the
had
violin?
some ups and downs. I was still playing the violin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore in concerts, but chamber music with what French first desk people at Chicago Symphony and Janos Starker and people like that.
When
I used to have a string quartet when I first started in this country. It's called the Maverick Quartet. We had a summer season of concert every week. It was near Kingston on the Catskill Mountains. So anyway, back to Cincinnati, then I started guest conducting, went many places, many places. Oh, I was in Honolulu for about 6-7 years. I took my violin to the South Pacific Islands. I played to people there in these distant atoll islands, little islands, and made beautiful friendships. And I will show you beads and turtle shell stuff that my cannibal friends made me. I played Bach to the Highlanders of New Guinea and tiny little islands of the U.S. Trust Territory, and the Marshall Islands, Yap, YAP, Ponape, Truk, TRUK. People never saw violin before.
I thought this was after you left Cincinnati, or was it?
Oh, it's after.
Oh,
way
okay.
after.
Okay.
Then I came back to California. I was busy with the movie music things there. Then what happened? Where did I? Oh, that's when I went to San Luis Obispo, because I had a good friend from Hungary, first cellist of this Budapest Symphony Orchestra, of which I told you before was concertmaster. He was solo first cellist. His name was Tibor Kalman. And he found me here after the war, and I remembered his name, and he found me through a letter, and I couldn't remember his name with the face. But finally he sent me a little photo. I said, oh sure, that's Tibor Kalman. What happened to him was he was in concentration camp, tried to escape 3 times. The 3rd time he didn't have to, because the war was already over. He would have been released, but no, he was lonesome, homesick, and he stepped on a mine, and his right arm had to be amputated from right here. A great cellist, full of life person. He found all his family gone. His wife divorced him. Well, he had one daughter. She has been executive fashion something with the Nordstrom company. Well, anyway, this Tibor, we lost each other again, and through a miracle we found each other again. He was in San Luis Obispo with the public schools with his one arm directing children's, young people, young orchestras. So he talked me into going there to start a music school. I said, well, you're crazy, you're going to lose your shirt. Well, he started with 2 pupils, it went up to 20, and just, I love to work with kids, whether kids, little kids or big kids. And when I left, it was about 250, 300 students over there. So that was Tibor, my friend, and then when he died, I decided to stay there because it's such a lovely place to be there and to come back. I wrote this work for children's choir. It was called Prayers from the Ark. And it's a beautiful, very witty verses by a French nun. Oh, like the rooster says, God, don't forget I'm the one that makes the sun rise. Or the little duck says, and please protect all folk who quack. Things like that. And there's an elephant and a turtle and all that. So I wanted Torsten, my Danish friend, to have a venue to bring him here to Tucson somehow for a piano concert. And the Benedictine monastery here, which is a historical place, I overheard that sometimes they have concerts. Maria Bachmann has a trio, and her pianist John Klippenhoff, and I forgot the new lady cellist. But they are super artists, and Maria played my violin piano sonata several times around, including in Boston. She played it in Jordan Hall and here and there. And then on the basis of that, they invited a trio here for the Arizona Friends of Chamber Music. It's a very fine, super organization. So Maria decided she wants to play my sonata here. And this next 2 weeks from now, my very dear friend from the Faroe Islands, Monica Jönsson, and her pianist is going to be here. I effected for them a very busy musical week. They're going to play a family concert, children's concerts, and master classes, and they're going to play my composition here and there and everywhere. I don't know how I did it, but
which pieces do they play of yours?
What pieces? I dedicated her a violin solo partita, which is a long work, which she premiered at the International Bach Festival of all places in Schaffhausen in Switzerland. And she played it since then, but she also learned this violin sonata. So she's going to play that here, and parts of it for the children. And they have two violins, short violin pieces. I don't know which one they want to play. They're going to have a busy week here. They wanted to see me. I love that incredibly beautiful area and beautiful people.
You went to see them, didn't you?
Faroe Islands.
You went to the Faroe Islands yourself. And they did a concert in some ancient
one
building.
That little nation, it's about 30,000 people, the whole country. They speak their own language. Luckily, for them, they are far away from any political turmoil. It's the big Atlantic Ocean and the mountains right in there, and tiny islands, one after the other. Tiny little villages. Had music festival over there. I went 2 times since then, and they wanted to build me a house right there.
Aww.
Well, it's cold there, but it's I can't tell, it's real, you back about 500 years of Nordic life. There's the whales and the seabirds and everything is the ocean and the fish and so forth. But then Okay, then I would miss my cannibal friends with the bone in the nose.
Well, you've traveled quite a bit in your life. You've traveled
I'm
quite
very,
a bit.
very lucky.